James Knox Polk entered the world on November 2, 1795, in a small log cabin in Mecklenburg County, North Carolina. He was the eldest of 10 children born to Samuel and Jane Polk, a hard-working pioneer family of Scotch-Irish descent. The Polk household believed in determination, faith, and self-reliance, qualities that would later define one of America's most underestimated presidents. From the start, James was different. He was quiet but observant, physically fragile yet mentally fierce. As a child, he suffered from poor health, and doctors once feared he might not live long. At the age of 10, his family moved west to Tennessee, settling on the frontier lands of Maury County. There, James's father became a prosperous farmer, and the young boy was exposed to the raw energy of America's westward expansion. But his delicate health limited his physical activities, leading him to spend much of his time reading and listening to adults debate politics and land rights. In his teenage years, Polk underwent a painful surgery to remove bladder stones without anesthesia, as it had not yet been discovered. The ordeal nearly killed him, but it strengthened his resilience. From then on, he resolved to make his mark not through physical strength, but through intellect and willpower. Denied by poor health, the rougher paths of youth, Polk pursued education with intensity. His mother encouraged his ambition and deep faith, telling him that a disciplined mind could accomplish anything. By 1815, he had enrolled at the University of North Carolina, where his academic brilliance shone. Graduating with top honors in 1818, he returned to Tennessee, determined to become a lawyer and public servant. What no one could foresee was that this frail young man from a rural cabin would one day become the president who expanded America's territory more than any other leader, achieving everything he promised, then stepping away from power forever. After studying law under the famed Felix Grundy in Nashville, Polk was admitted to the bar in 1820. He began his practice in Columbia, Tennessee, quickly earning a reputation as a skilled debater with an iron memory. But law was just a stepping stone. His true passion was politics. Polk's entry into public life began in 1823, when he won election to the Tennessee House of Representatives. He was young, energetic, and deeply loyal to Andrew Jackson, the fiery general who was becoming the face of a new populist movement. Polk mirrored Jackson's belief in limited government, states' rights, and expansion of democracy for white men. In 1825, Polk was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives, where his career flourished. He soon became one of Jackson's most trusted allies in Congress, earning the nickname Young Hickory, a nod to Jackson's Old Hickory. Polk's unwavering support for Jackson's policies, especially his opposition to the national banks, solidified his place among the Democrats' rising stars. By 1835, Polk's sharp intellect and tireless work ethic earned him the position of Speaker of the House, making him one of the most powerful men in Washington. He managed debates with precision and fairness, always guided by loyalty to Jacksonian ideals. However, after 14 years in Congress, Polk sought a new challenge. In 1839, he returned to Tennessee and successfully ran for governor. His tenure was marked by efforts to modernize education and support internal improvements, but political tides shifted. The Whig Party gained strength, and by 1843, Polk had lost 2 re-election bids. His career seemed to be fading, but destiny had other plans. When the Democratic National Convention of 1844 deadlocked between Martin Van Buren and Lewis Cass, Polk's name emerged as a dark horse compromise. Few outside Tennessee knew him well, but his loyalty, discipline, and clear stance on expansion, particularly his support for the annexation of Texas, made him the perfect unifier. The nation was ready for a man who promised bold action, not cautious compromise. Polk was about to surprise everyone. In 1844, the Democratic Party was fractured and uncertain. Former President Martin Van Buren opposed annexing Texas, fearing war with Mexico. But expansion was the spirit of the age. Manifest destiny. The belief that America was destined to expand coast to coast had captured the national imagination. At the Democratic Convention, James K. Polk emerged as a compromise nobody expected. A dark horse unknown to most of the nation, he was nominated on the 9th ballot. His platform was clear: annex Texas, settle the Oregon boundary dispute, and strengthen the nation's economy. The Whigs nominated Henry Clay, the great compromiser, who was far more famous and experienced. Most expected Polk to lose, but Polk's campaign was relentless, disciplined, and perfectly aligned with public sentiment. Americans hungered for expansion and glory, and Polk promised to deliver both. He won narrowly, but decisively, becoming the 11th President of the United States at age 49, the youngest at that time. His victory stunned the political establishment. He had no personal wealth, no military fame, and little charisma, but he possessed unmatched determination and a plan. Before taking office, Polk made a remarkable private vow. He would serve only one term and accomplish 4 major goals: reduce tariffs, establish an independent treasury, settle the Oregon dispute, and acquire California and New Mexico. No other president had ever entered the White House with such a clear, measurable checklist. When he took the oath of office on March 4, 1845, the country was restless and divided. Yet Polk's calm focus stood out. He was not a man of half measures. His presidency would prove that calculated vision and relentless effort could achieve more in 4 years than others did in 8. President Polk wasted no time turning ambition into action. His first target was Oregon, a vast territory jointly occupied by Britain and the US for decades. Polk had campaigned under the slogan 5440, or Fight, a fiery claim to all of Oregon up to the 5,440 latitude. But in office, he negotiated skillfully, avoiding war. In 1846, the Oregon Treaty set the border at the 49th parallel, peacefully securing what would become Oregon, Washington, and Idaho for the US. Next came the economic reforms. Polk slashed tariffs through the Walker Tariff of 1846, invigorating trade and reducing costs for consumers. He also restored the independent treasury system, ensuring federal funds were kept separate from private banks. These policies strengthened the economy and won support from Democrats nationwide. But Polk's most dramatic move came in the Southwest. Determined to fulfill manifest destiny, he offered to purchase California and New Mexico from Mexico. When negotiations failed, tensions exploded. In 1846, after a skirmish along the Rio Grande, Polk declared that American blood has been shed on American soil. The Mexican-American War had begun. Critics accused Polk of provoking war to seize territory, but his determination never wavered. American forces, led by generals like Zachary Taylor and Winfield Scott, won decisive victories. By 1848, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo ended the conflict, transferring vast lands including present-day California, Arizona, Nevada, Utah, and parts of Colorado and New Mexico to the United States. In just 3 years, Polk had achieved nearly everything he promised. The U.S. had grown by more than 1/3, stretching from the Atlantic to the Pacific. It was a monumental transformation, one that fulfilled the dream of a continental republic. Yet with triumph came controversy. The new territories reignited fierce debates over slavery's expansion, planting seeds of division that would later tear the nation apart. By 1847, President Polk had accomplished what most leaders only dream of, but it came at a cost. The pressures of war, expansion, and constant political battles drained his health and spirit. He worked tirelessly, often 16 hours a day, reading every document, approving every order, and leaving nothing to chance. At home, his devoted wife, Sarah Childress Polk, served as his closest advisor and hostess. Intelligent and politically savvy, she managed social affairs with grace and provided counsel in private. The Polks had no children, but their partnership was one of mutual respect and shared purpose. Despite military victories, Polk faced growing opposition. The Whigs accused him of waging an unnecessary war for land and power. Northern abolitionists condemned the expansion of slavery into the new territories. Even some Democrats turned against him, frustrated by his relentless control and unwillingness to compromise. Yet Polk refused to be distracted by politics. His sense of duty was absolute. He had promised results, not popularity. When the war ended, he faced the monumental task of organizing the newly acquired lands. The question of whether slavery would extend into them loomed like a storm cloud. Polk tried to maintain balance, but sectional tensions deepened. Meanwhile, his health was deteriorating. Years of stress, sleepless nights, and constant strain weakened his body. The same delicate constitution that had plagued his youth returned with vengeance. By 1848, he was visibly gaunt and exhausted, but he pressed on, determined to finish strong. As his final year in office approached, Polk had achieved every major goal he had set. He reduced tariffs, reformed the Treasury, settled Oregon peacefully, and won the Mexican-American War. Few presidents had ever fulfilled so much in so little time. But as he prepared to leave Washington, one thing was certain: James K. Polk had burned brightly, but at a tremendous personal cost. True to his word, Polk refused to seek re-election. He believed in serving only one term and delivering results rather than clinging to power. When he left the White House in March 1849, he was just 53 years old, but looked decades older. His hair had turned white, his body frail. Polk's departure was unlike that of any modern president. There were no grand celebrations or extended farewells. He quietly packed his belongings and began a journey home to Tennessee with Sarah by his side. The crowds that had once cheered him now debated his legacy, some calling him a visionary, others a warmonger. On the way home, he visited New Orleans, where he was greeted warmly by supporters. But his health continued to decline. The exhaustion of 4 intense years had taken its toll. By the time he reached Nashville, he was feverish and weak. Polk had planned to enjoy a peaceful retirement at his newly purchased home, Polk Place, in downtown Nashville. He dreamed of reading, writing, and living quietly with Sarah after decades of public service. But fate had other plans. Just 3 months after leaving office, James K. Polk contracted cholera, then spreading rapidly through the South. Despite medical efforts, his weakened body could not fight the infection. On June 15, 1849, he passed away at the age of 53, less than 100 days after leaving the presidency. He was the youngest president to die after leaving office and one of the few who fulfilled every major campaign promise. His death was mourned quietly but sincerely across the nation. Sarah Polk would live another 42 years, never remarrying, preserving his memory and legacy. Their home became a shrine to a man who, though short-lived, had forever changed the map of America. James K. Polk's presidency left an indelible mark on American history. In just one term, he expanded the United States to the Pacific Ocean, shaping the nation's future as a continental power. California's addition would later spark the gold rush, transforming the economy. The Oregon boundary secured peaceful expansion northward, while the Mexican cession opened the American Southwest. However, these triumphs came with deep consequences. The question of slavery in the new territories intensified divisions between North and South. The Compromise of 1850 and later, the Civil War would trace their origins back to the territorial expansion Polk had achieved. Historians often call him the most effective one-term president in U.S. history. He fulfilled his promises precisely as stated, an extraordinary rarity in politics. Even his critics admitted his focus and integrity were unmatched. He worked harder than almost any president before or after him, often micromanaging every aspect of government. Yet, his legacy remains mixed. To some, he was the embodiment of America's ambition, decisive, visionary, and unrelenting. To others, he symbolized aggressive expansionism, willing to go to war for land and power. But even those who question his motives cannot deny his impact. Under Polk, the United States grew by more than 1.2 million square miles. He transformed a young republic into a continental empire, setting the stage for the modern nation we know today. His achievements reshaped trade, migration, and identity, forging a new sense of destiny. James K. Polk may not have sought glory, but history gave it to him. His short, intense life was a testament to what discipline and determination can achieve. He had one vision: to expand America's reach, and he accomplished it completely. In the grand tapestry of American presidents, James K. Polk is often overshadowed by names like Lincoln, Jefferson, and Roosevelt. Yet his impact is hidden in plain sight, on the maps, in the borders, and in the identity of the nation itself. He was not a charismatic leader or a great orator. He was a planner, a strategist, and a man of iron will. His presidency was not about dreams, but about deeds. Every decision he made had purpose. Every policy was a step toward a larger goal. Polk entered office with a plan, executed it with precision, and left by choice, proving that leadership is not about popularity but purpose. He expanded the country, strengthened its economy, and laid the groundwork for generations of progress. Yet he paid the ultimate price, his health and his life. Today, his story serves as a powerful reminder that greatness doesn't always shout. Sometimes, it works quietly, efficiently, and relentlessly. He had no monuments built in his lifetime, no military triumphs celebrated in song, yet his achievements shaped the destiny of millions. When Americans look at a map from the Pacific shores of California to the forests of Oregon, they are, in many ways, seeing the legacy of James K. Polk. He was the architect of America's expansion, the executor of its destiny, and the proof that one determined individual can transform a nation. James K. Polk died young, but his vision lived on. In the silent strength of his life, he showed that leadership is not measured by how long one reigns, but by what one leaves behind. And in that measure, Polk stands tall among the giants of history.